Hey, good evening, everyone. Good to see you. Welcome to another episode of Heavy Metallurgy's Album Club. We got some usual suspects and a suspect that hasn't been around in a while. TJ, everybody, Emperor Ted returns. Hey, how's it going? How's it going?
What's up?
People were clamoring for El Duce here a couple episodes ago, and he is
LT's
back.
returns.
LT's returns,
and I can smell your expletive. Gotta watch that monetization now.
That's right. Gotta keep it PG here. Well, we're back and with another episode of this fun show. And Kellen, who picked last week, is not here. He's out shooting a video with the cool kids right now, and we'll see that later. It'll be a lot of fun. But he picked Miscreance. What's the name of this album? Convergence. Yes. The band is from Italy. It looks like they're broke up into 4 parts. There's Venice, Veneto, Florence, and Tuscany all on their location tab. They released their debut demo from Awareness to Creation in 2018. They put out a split with Vile Apparition in 2021. And the debut full-length Convergence in 2022 on Unspeakable Acts Records. Gentlemen, Convergence. Jim, what was your first impression of this record?
My first impression was this. Human. Lots. That human/individual thought patterns, death, atheist. Their 2 seminal albums. All that stuff was kind of playing in my head. Maybe even some a little bit of Watchtower. But without the vocals. For those, but that's all stuff that I really love, and I really like it. And these, you got to be a really great musician to be able to pull that kind of stuff off. So, it was super entertaining. But I was like, I was kind of looking to find how these guys were kind of twisting it to make it their own. To Alan's point, yes, definitely heard, Van Drunen on the vocals, which again, not a bad thing, we all love Asphyx, and if you want to go way back, Deathstrike, good, a good first impression, and what. The only, and we'll get into it, was really trying to find, how they were, putting their own, stab into it. So we'll get into that later.
All right, Ben. First impression.
Saw the cover on Instagram, pulled me right in. Checked it out on Bandcamp. Really floored me. I couldn't order the CD fast enough. In fact, I ordered the CD from their Bandcamp page. So I paid shipping from Italy, and then I realized, this is on Unspeakable Acts. I could have got this in the U.S.
Fuck money.
Riffs all over the place. Riff salad. Just really nice, crispy, clean guitars and drum sound. Really loved it right away. This artwork on this thing is fucking awesome. And it looks like the artist has never done anything else, at least on Metal Archives. But I think it fits the album really well. It's like colorful and vibrant. Can we also at some point take a look at the band photo of these guys? Awesome.
Yeah. Daisy Duke shorts and 2 tight track shorts. Yeah.
Afflicted, like they're referencing Afflicted Prodigal Son with those beach shorts.
Yep. Right.
But yeah, it really harkens back to your Death, Pestilence, Sadus, Oblivion, Syndrome, stuff like that. Awesome. Vocals, I get like he's maybe referencing Van Drunen, but Van Drunen is like near and dear to me, and he's nowhere near as awesome as Van Drunen is. So like the only caveat to an otherwise really really awesome album.
Okay, TJ.
Yeah, so when I very first put this on, I usually fire these up like right as soon as I find out what was picked when I wasn't here. So I fired it up that night real quick, and I'm like, this sounds like Human Era Death. Just boom. That's what I got my initial thing. And I listened to about 3 tracks, and then I went to bed. And then I sat with it, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, this is Sphere's era, like Testimonies era, Pestilence, like all day. That's it's like, yes, there's obvious nods to all these other all the other stuff in there. They're wearing their influence on their sleeve real hard. But that's, they're just, it's, to me, it's not like sort of sounds like it sounds just like, he sounds like, not like Van Drunen. He sounds more like what's his nuts that sings for the band now, the guitar.
Mamelli. Yeah. He sounds like Van Drunen through Mamelli. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, I was just kind of like, oh, and then, I'm listening to it, and it's like, yeah, it's, it's all that, but like those 2 records, the first 3 Pestilence records, each one of them is its own animal, and then they kind of went where they went, and then whatever came back. But this, I never really connected with those Spheres and Testimony. I had them. I bought them when they came out. I listened to them through my Walkman a ton, and I don't know, man. I just never, they're not something I go back to all the time, and you don't really, And this is better than that for sure. I think it's like I said to you earlier. It's like that, but tastier. The riffs are more thought, because there's a lot of stuff like in Testimony and Spheres where, he's just going, he's just doing nothing, and he's singing over it, and then he gets into some weird little phrase and keyboards or something, and it's just nowhere near as kind of dense as this. This stuff is, hearkening into a lot more of the proggy bands like Obscura and things like that, but coming from that camp, from the older camp, and so it's like, yeah, definitely, they're definitely not hiding where they're coming from for sure, but it's cool in that regard, I think. So that's where I'm at for that.
Yeah, I'm going to mirror everything everybody had said, but I've got visual aids as well. This album, of course, a lot of this album on there, and this to me is the I think Miscreance is a little bit more techie than this release is, but one thing that ties a couple of these bands together, it's this guy right here, Tony Choi, the bass player. He also plays on Atheist's Unquestionable Presence.
Yep.
And that's one thing on this album that stands out, is the super insane bass work. And it kind of put me in mind of Tony Choi. And again, it's Van Drunen style vocals by way of Patrick Mamelli trying to mimic them, but it's the vocals by the drummer. I don't know if it's Andrea or Andre Feltrin. And isn't it kind of funny how drummers singing back in the day was like 1 or 2, and that's it? It was kind of like a rare thing. Now it seems like all these new death metal bands coming out, there's a big contingent of drummers that actually sing. Don't tell our drummer. And Chris, cover your earmuffs. Yeah. But this album initially, although I was very impressed by the technical prowess of it, I was disappointed right off the bat, because I'm like, wow, so much technical skill, and they've done nothing of their own with it. I'll be completely honest. I was thinking they're basically aping the sound of these 3 bands very, very accurately, down to the vocals, down to the bass style, down to the sound, even the production.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's just like, God, I was kind of disappointed by that, but thankfully I stuck around and kept pushing, because we try to listen to these things a good chunk of time, so we're not coming at you folks in the chat with BS. But Since Kellen is not here, he did send out an alternate question for us to ponder. So I'm going to read this real quick. Miscreance is clearly playing in a style of progressive death thrash inspired by the likes of Atheist, Sadist, Hellwitch, Oblivion, and Chemical Breath. It's a style that roughly started around the 90s. In 1990, a time when thrash metal was getting more extreme and death metal was becoming more progressive. But by 94, this niche genre had lost a sense of influence and direction. Given the lack of bands and albums dedicated to this style of extreme metal, does Miscreance prove that there is still more artistry to be explored within this niche subgenre, or have all their ideas already been exhausted? Jim.
I think that there is potential for it to be pushed further. And there's a little bit of shine and sheer on this album that hints towards it, but I don't think this album honestly makes a case for that. I when I listen to this record, I hear worship of all these bands, and that's not a terrible thing, especially when your influences are bands, that are of this caliber, and you can play in this style in such a way where it's convincing, and they certainly do. I mean, they're not just like running scales and doing polyrhythms or whatever. I mean, jazz interludes and stuff. The songs make sense. They flow really well. There is just enough repetition. Where you can follow what's going on. It isn't like a million riffs a song where you just kind of get lost in it. They're brief. They're and I think when you're playing, the more technical you get. For me, the more technical you get, the shorter the song should be. Because if it's a super long song and it's super technical, you start to lose me. I start to kind of tune out. But if you're technical, you're progressive, and the songs are short, you leave more to come back to later. So I think that they do that convincingly, but I don't think that they convince me that there's a lot of life left in this genre. I think that they're a good reminder of what came before, and I definitely found myself wanting to go back and listen to Atheist again, listen to Mid-Period Death again, and for me, Watchtower, not the vocals but the riffs, and so I commend them for that. I commend them for their capabilities, and and not just technical, but the ability to write songs. But I don't know that they've convinced me that there's a lot of life left in this genre. There's a couple sparkles here and there of some originality, particularly on No Empathy. There's a dissonant thrash riff in there that kind of carries the verses. That's really interesting, and I thought it was a nice kind of wake up call in the middle of it. Like, okay, hey, they're not just a slave to their influences here; they're pushing something new. But those flashes of light weren't quite enough to convince me. To Kellen's point, that there's like, there's hope for this genre to come back with a vengeance and to really make their mark in the modern era. But who knows? Maybe next record.
Right. Ben.
Well, let's get one thing on the table. These guys are between the ages of 22 and 25. So I'm giving them a lot of credit for being super young. They weren't even alive when these albums came out. None of them were.
Yep.
That they're referencing. So, I mean, I think that's incredible that sound has, is still alive right now. To answer Kellen's question, sometimes I think since maybe I'm not a musician in a genre, working out, trying to be the most creative version of my influences or something, I don't know if I could say that there is room left to be creative in a certain niche genre with a certain amalgam of influences or whatever. But I feel like when someone comes along and proves that is possible, it's because I didn't know that was possible. So that's my answer to that question. But also, I think as metalheads, especially when you're older metalheads like us, we love the old stuff. And so when all you're doing is referencing that old stuff and sounding like that old stuff, you still get a lot of credit and credibility and love out of me, at least, for doing that. But like, I feel like if you're sounding like Death, Atheist, Pestilence, and all that to a carbon copy, I'm gonna love it. But you're only going to get like an 8 out of 10 out of me, because the 10 out of 10s are the albums that you're sounding like.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep. All right, Tej.
Well, to me, I mean, it's encouraging to see. I mean, the kids coming up behind us, and it's like Ben was talking about that photo, and we definitely got to talk about that, because there's a lot to discuss there with that band photo. But because it speaks volumes to this whole question, about this stuff, because they are just obviously, they are worshiping at the altars of the greats. They totally are, and this album is a testament to that, and they are good. It's like, here we are, 2023. Metal music has how many decades, going back to whatever, and come on, man. We all saw that picture when we were 15, and we picked up whatever, and there's that band. How many of them look like that?
I was that picture when I was 15.
Look crushed. Yes. Oh, great. Perfect.
Yeah. And
I had the jams, just, man. It was awful.
Yeah. And they are obviously just like, this is what these guys did. That's what and then look at it, man. You can't, and even the shirts, they look like they bought them, they dug them out of their big brother's bottom dresser drawer. They're all like vintage shit. It's like, so they they are completely entrenched in what they're doing. I think it's pretty obvious. Yeah, this record is, by all means, and they took a lot of time. Even the fucking guitar tones, and there are passages in here that are just like peeled right out of the Pestilence stuff. It's like I'm sitting there driving along, listening. I'm like, oh my god, it's like. And it's what do you do? We're all a sum of our influences, and
Sure.
This has come up time and time again. Here we are, and we've got stacks and stacks and stacks of the legacy stuff and the old stuff. It's what we draw off, and if we're lucky as creators of music, we can try to cue in on something that's like not the same, but it's at this point in the game. How do you there's no new wheel to spin, so is there more life in the genre? I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's there. These kids are testament to that, and they're not the only ones that are doing stuff like this. And and it's some of the bands are like way more extreme, and in a way that band, like I mentioned Obscura earlier and stuff, I can't take that band at all. I just don't care about that band and any of the death metal that's kind of in that. It's just, like Jim says, it just gets so, the wank fest gets so out of hand, and it's just like, I don't care. I want to hear a song. You already proved to me 2 songs back that you learned the scale book, man, when you were 10 years old. Got you, bro. Now take that book and throw it in shitter and write me something, write something good,
yeah,
and write a song, that's why, like, I always, like, back in the day with like Yngwie and Vi and Satriani and stuff. It's like when we were kids, it was like, oh my god, wow, I got to do that, I got to play like that, I got to be like that. And then one day you listen to it and like, fucking hey, that song sucks. That song is terrible. There's no riffs in it. It's lame as shit, and then here comes Yngwie. Like, wow, okay, that was cool, but the rest of it's terrible. It's just so boring, and it's just a placeholder for him to come in and masturbate all over everybody's ears, and it's like, so it gets, it's like, play a song, write something cool, and then do whatever, so these guys are definitely writing songs. These guys are trying to do stuff that's far and away better than a lot of the stuff that was happening, way more involved and tastier. I still, like with Marty, I do feel like they kind of missed the mark in a lot of places. I just feel like I'm not feeling any, a lot of that, but yeah, I still think that these kids are a testament to the staying power, the appeal, the talents there, and they're, and I don't think that, they're definitely, they want to be, with the, you see it. I mean, their obituary, Voivod, Demolition Hammer, it's on their shirts. It's like they know it's cool. And that's what they're doing, and it's cool, man. So definitely, I definitely think there's more to come, and definitely could be good.
All right. Well, for me to mirror most of what you guys are saying, is there still more artistry to be explored within this niche subgenre, or all the ideas already been exhausted? To me, this is now knowing their ages, and even looking at the photo, it's an obvious tribute. It's a tribute type of band to to that era. Comes straight up. And I think of, bands that are, doing something different within their genre. I think of that Afterbirth album we covered a while back. Jim, do you remember that one? That brutal slam band that's doing all these crazy weird things, but actually writing good. Is there stuff to be explored yet in this music? There sure is. And other than these guys' insane songwriting, playing ability, and there's some songwriting chops on here. But for me, this is largely a tribute band. And once I became, okay with that idea, and then actually just sat with the album, it started to grow on me a little bit. But let's talk about discuss the musicality and composition of, I can never remember the name of this album. Convergence. Jim.
Well, yeah, we already talked about it a little, and you cannot, be a worship band or tribute band or whatever you want to call it with these sorts of influences and not be an incredibly talented musician. The gods that laid the groundwork for this sound, Death, Atheist, you guys mentioned Oblivion, we're talking shredders, we're talking, jazz influences, whether you're a guitar player or a bass player or drummer, all, that, style of music, mixed with metal, really commands, a deep knowledge of your instrument. You're gonna have to know how to, shape your chords in a variety of different ways. You're gonna have to know how, what keys make sense with one another. It isn't, my, style of playing where let me tune down as far as I can and play simple riffs.
Chords.
I was a much dumber kind of style of a musician. So I have nothing but respect for kids, especially at their age, to be able to have chops like this, but to also construct them in a way that makes sense and that harkens back to, their influences. So, musicality, 100%, these guys are there. Be interesting to see where they go from here. Are they going to go cynic and just kind of, is the metal going to start to fall away and just get more and more atmospheric, or are they going to get heavier and just more technical, and maybe lose it with obscure, or are they going to forge new ground and do something else? And I think I'm not seeing that on this record, but I do think there's potential there, especially, with Ben's revelation that they're so young. Maybe there's something really cool that they're going to bring to the table. Maybe they're going to be the ones to do it for this style. Composition, like I said, these guys, they get in and they get out. So the songs stay interesting because they're brief. Yes, they're technical, but there's a lot of cool stuff on there. Some weird choices here and there that I'm not super a fan of, like on My Internment. The spoken word vocal thing of I guess the serial killer is describing his victim's body. Like, I was just like, oh, come on, shut up, man, get back to the riffs. I was like, I don't want to hear that. Let me hear the Van Drunen worship. I want to hear the screaming. Let's get back to it. And then there's gang vocals about 2 minutes into No Empathy, which I was like, whoa, where did that come from? Yeah, gang vocals and progressive technical death metal. It was only a quick little thing. So that's kind of what I was saying earlier. They are like putting some flavor into there that is their own. But I think they're kind of maybe experimenting with the wrong spices right now. I'm not sure spoken word and gang vocals is the way to push this genre, back to the forefront. But hey, you know what? At least they're trying something. It's not 110% worship, like I would say, kind of like maybe Volcandra is a little bit of Dissection.
Right.
So there is hope there. But musicality, composition, these guys have got it all over the place. But I think they still need to dig a little deeper, for the third element that's going to make them a standout, and that's that originality factor. And maybe that will come with a little bit more age and a little bit more experience.
These riffs are hard. That'd be a good gang yell throw in the background. Ben.
So maybe you guys would know what age would Chuck and those guys have been when Human came out? Would they be like maybe late 20s, early 30s?
Seems about right.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, he's 31 when he died, and that was like 2002. So 91. I guess. Yeah, he's early 20s. He's like about the same age.
Damn. But he was revolutionizing. He was revolutionizing a genre.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're really shooting for something that's like bands who like moved the genre forward so much in such a little time. And also bands like just like Death progressed so much each album and just like ran the gamut of what was possible from early death metal to Sound of Perseverance kind of stuff. So that's like a really hard thing to take on, and their technicality, insane. These kids could do whatever they want to, absolutely. So I think that's a perfect groundwork for them to do something a little more complex, a little more personal, I guess. But being more inventive, I think, is definitely like their only lacking here. I'll definitely listen to I'll probably buy whatever they do next. But if I was gonna say, here's what I need you guys to do, it's gonna be like really sit down and study and think of something and play around and spend your time trying to come up with something that's like wildly original. If you really want to pay homage to the great bands that you're sounding like, then what you need to do is be ingenuitive about what you're going to sound like going forward. But insanely capable. It made me remember back when I first heard Vector, and I was thinking, okay, I'm not sure if I'm ready to hear another like old school thrash band, but yeah, I'll check this out. And man, those guys were insanely talented and like really merging like Destruction, Voivod. But I'm still struggling to decide if I think they were just a tribute band or if they really brought like enough originality to the formula that would make me think they're like a 10 out of 10 kind of band. I saw them live. I think a couple times. I think their last album was perfect, but again, like I'm just reserving my 10s for those first steps into this path, like your Deaths and your Pestilences and your Atheists and stuff.
Yeah. Right on. Okay, TJ.
Okay, so what was the question again? I was so enamored with what he was saying.
Musicality and composition of this album.
Convergence. Oh, yeah, Derp. Okay, yeah. So, no, I think the song they really overall I think they did really well writing these songs. I think they're good. There are spots where, it gets a little kind of, just the tech, the riff to be technical for technical sake rather than trying to, be something. But by and large, they put a lot of I feel like they put a lot of thought. They're trying to make it tasty. Like I said, it's definitely, you listen to some of the, like I said, like those Pestilence records, and man, there was some really boring shit on those where he's just playing power chords all the time to sing over and then throw some keyboards on it. And they're really not that technical, and this here, it's like, no, he's drawing from deeper wells with this stuff. The guys that are writing on Convergence. musicality and stuff. It's, these songs are generally listenable. They're you can get down with them and get into them and not kind of get lost in the weeds of all the bullshit they're trying to do. And for, like Jim said, like the spoken word thing, that kind of comes at you like, I don't know, I didn't hate it. I generally I think it's kind of cool when bands try to do things that I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable trying to do, take chances and take risks on things like that. And they obviously, they thought it was a cool idea, and so they did it. And I didn't really hate it. I was a little odd. I was like, man, but then I was like, no, man, he doesn't sound like Count Chocula or anything. It was kind of cool. Yeah, but so it was kind of cool. The acoustic things, those were, that was, kind of threw me a little too. I was like, what the hell, because it was they're a little weird. They were really kind of chromatic and atonal in a lot of ways, but then they kind of shifted it back into it. And I don't know. These guys are really good. Like Marty said, there was a lot of moments where I was yawning a little bit, but overall, I think these guys were writing some good stuff. And I definitely, being that this is officially their first full length record.
Yeah, they did a split with another band in
yeah,
a demo.
Yeah, and it's pretty damn impressive.
It's ambitious, musically ambitious.
Yeah. Yeah, they put a lot into it, and so I can't see where, the next record, it's either just going to be this to the nth degree, or they're going to just tip right off the abyss into crazy land, and become Gorguts 2.0 or something, just. But as far as that goes, no, definitely good songs, good efforts on this. Composition, a little bit here and there, but overall pretty good.
Okay. Well, for those wondering, this is very complex. Note-based riffs, meaning there's just a lot of notes being played. There's not a lot of power chords. It happens on occasion, but most of this album is centered around a few perplexing time signatures and super busy riff runs. And the riffs themselves can congeal into moments of memorable hooks here and there, but they're few and far between. It's basically, as soon as a riff is done, another one is there to follow up on it. There's a lot of riffs per song there, and even in the short time frame of the songs, there's a lot of stuff going on. So if you're into that kind of thing, this is going to be up your alley. Thankfully for me, they actually can craft some good songs out of this, which is good. It takes a little patience. It takes some time listening to this stuff over and over a few times. For me anyway, it did. Yeah, I mean, it's just a solid base of complex without getting too crazy, and they do a few little things here and there to spice up the hammering you're getting.
The record's only 31 minutes long, so they pack a lot of shit into a half an
really
hour.
Do. There's a lot of punch in this 30-minute long album. But let's talk about the production. Jim.
You guys touched on it earlier, but I completely agree. I think the production choices that were made were also emblematic of their heroes. The production, of like when I think back to Human, it has almost kind of like a wet sound, sort of, everything. The instruments just sort of just flow and waves over one another. Nothing's really buried. You can hear everything. You can hear the finger style, bass. I'm not sure if he's playing a fretless or not. I'd have to listen to it more to determine that. But either way, very technical finger style bassing, but it's always way up in the mix. But everything's up in the mix. You can hear everything very, very well, very, very clear. But yet it still doesn't sound like digital and too clean. It sounds, it has a warmth to it in the same way to me that like atheist and death human and individual thought pattern. So it's a very warmth to it, and a lot of it, I think it has to do with like keeping that sort of a mid-rangey bass sound, the fingerstyle kind of up in the mix. It really kind of it fills out that technical guitar style playing where it doesn't sound weak, because a lot of, if you don't got the right amount of distortion and you're running a scale, it can sound real kind of thin. But with they've got a great balance of this like kind of warbly bass, and just the right amount of distortion on the guitars where it sounds warm, and it doesn't like blast you with super loudness of like a modern style production. So I think that was a conscious choice, and given with their approach to their instruments, which obviously they take it very seriously, I can only assume that they made a very conscious choice musically, and in the studio to also continue that sort of like attention to detail, on the mixing board as well. So I really like the production. Again, I'm a fan of the gods that created this music. In the '90s, these albums all mean a lot to me. My two favorite death albums are Leprosy and Individual Thought Patterns. So it's like so this kind of a style really works for me. And I think that they nailed the production. But again, that's great if you're a worship band and you're good with that. It's great for a tribute band, but I would like to see them take, as they continue to grow and do more, more risks, like, hey, you've got it down. It's almost kind of like, if, I'll use something cheesy, and it's like an abstract painter, the good ones like study the classics first, got all like the basics down, and then they did weird shit like throwing paint against the wall. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of wondering, like, now that they've got that classic sound down, like even from a production perspective, what are they going to throw against the wall? What are they going to do to surprise us? Hopefully somehow find a balance between these styles that I really like so much, but making something their own. And heard some metal there in the background, but hey,
some death. There was some death in the background.
No,
Nice.
no, it wasn't. It was
Sound
actually that. It was that record. It's actually this record. I
Yeah,
opened up Bandcamp to get a better look at the album cover, and it started playing.
Yeah, TJ just thought he would just get bored and like listen to stuff while we're hanging out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you guys.
Like the end of the Oscars speech when the music starts playing. That's the shit from Jim.
Wrap it up, B.
All right, I'm gonna get you some Mariah Carey next time you're rep. I think that's what you need.
Are you good? Are you done?
I'm good.
Okay. We're teasing you, but you don't have to be done. Anyway.
No, I am.
All right, Ben.
It's pretty good. It's definitely adequate. Again, like I feel like more risks were taken in these older bands. There's a lot of like, I think, nuances in like volume of vocals and certain things where I think more sound studios would try things out to kind of enunciate the topics or the emotions or the parts of those songs. There was kind of there's a weird part in Fall Apart. Like, I don't know what the song's about. I haven't read into the lyrics. I haven't had a chance to sit with this a whole lot. I've listened to it maybe like 6 times or so, but I noticed in Fall Apart, there's this weird kind of intermission moment where, I don't know, the song falls apart or something. Is that what they're going for? I felt like that was just like no, that didn't work for me at all. But so like, I would like to hear them try more ideas in the studio to try and balance things out and make it a little more interesting. To me, I think it sounds a little digital. I'm really a sucker for that old analog sound, and if you're gonna say listen to this over those classic albums, that it better sound pretty fucking awesome. And this is pretty good, but I really prefer a lot more analog sound, which you're just not going to get these days. So like, I get it, it's not possible. But comparing those kinds of things, this is maybe about as close as you can get, I think, with a nice beefy digital production of today's standards. Yeah, pretty adequate, pretty good. Not blown away.
Right on. TJ.
Oh, it's like I mentioned earlier. the record sound. I mean, they really. I feel like they sat in the studio with the engineer and make it sound like this record. They just stuck it right in his face, and that's what it sounds like to him. I mean, there are parts of this where it just sounds like it's taken right off of those records. And I think it sounds great. I honestly, I think in the future they might consider trying to work on their tones and their production values in a way that would mean more benefit something that's their own and not try so hard to emulate those tones so much. But it really, I mean, the guitar tone and everything, there's kind of like when you listen to like Testimony and Spheres, there's a real dryness to Memelli's guitar tones that just kind of come across in this record too. And
they totally tried to get this sound.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's very dry. Yeah.
But it's good. You hear everything, and like you pointed out, and I was picking up on it, the bass. It's like, God, yeah, it's like such a common denominator in this. It's like, it's jumping out at you. It's out there. The guy can play. It's really cool. But I definitely, I think they put some thought and some time, and whoever was twiddling knobs for them definitely was good at it. And it's a good sounding record. I think they could benefit from coming, next time going in and thinking, we don't want to borrow everybody else's stuff. Let's just be Miscreants and let's just do whatever and not worry about sounding like all these other bands so much, and including their production. So I don't think there's any real demerit that they could take for this, because the record does sound great. And us being old and jaded, we're here picking it apart, so it's just like, well, it sounds like all this other shit, so but it sounds good though. How can you complain about that? So yeah.
All right. Yeah, I mean, exactly. They modeled it after this album. And I will say this, the biggest thing to get over for me when I first got this record, I mean, the Consuming Impulse, the guitar tone, it just sounds like it was scraped off the bottom of a dumpster in a good way. It was just really nasty, gritty, filthy sound. And then you get this, which was super slick. I mean, this production is very slick. They spared no expense in the studio, and you can kind of tell that's what Miscreance is going for on this one, although it doesn't have that warm analog sound. It is very digital sounding. I would have liked a little more buzz or bite in the guitars, but then again, you start stepping on other frequencies and you start adding more dirt. And this, what's going on here, it needs a little bit of clarity for all this stuff to cut, I think. Let's get into favorite, least favorite songs. Jim.
All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll start with a good. I mentioned earlier, No Empathy. That one had that really cool like dissonance chord thrash riff going on. Dude, Alan's hilarious. Oh god. All right, threw me off, Alan. That's pretty funny. But besides like the really cool riff, that I thought was pretty much the most original riff on the album. There is a kind of a bass solo about 3.5 minutes in, which is really well done, really cool.
It's cool.
Cool synth behind it. It sort of reminded me of like, Cosmic Seas on the Human album, but the tempo going behind it was way faster, and the synths kind of made it feel more like Cynic a little bit, which Cynic's debut, the first record, Veil of Maya, the good stuff. But also, No Empathy had the weird gang vocal moment on it. So my favorite song still had a little bit of I'll use TJ's word, demerit. I'm like, what in the hell was that? But at least they were doing a lot of experimentation. But I love No Empathy. I do think that anybody who hasn't checked it out yet should check out that song. I think it's really strong. And let's see, least favorite. Well, I'm gonna have to go with my internment just because I really don't like the spoken word vocal thing. It's distracting. I couldn't wait to let's get back to the death vocal. Let's get back to the riffs. It was and I think it kind of detracted from the song, which musically it's a perfectly fine song and it flows well with the rest of the record, works great. But I think the weird experiment with having somebody creepily talking about a dead body, it wasn't for me. I felt like I was, I'm cool with that kind of a voice if I'm watching Unsolved Mystery reruns or something, but not when I'm listening to a death metal record. So. But yeah,
Robert.
so yeah,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's right. Robert Stack was Unsolved Mysteries. Bill Curtis is FBI
Bill Curtis
Files,
is A&E.
A&E. That's
A&E,
right.
Yep.
Okay, thanks for the correction.
He knows his Curtis.
He knows his Curtis, dude.
He knows his Curtis.
Yeah. But I even like the acoustic outro. I thought it was tasteful and well done and made sense in the context of the album. Even though I typically like for bands to go out on a banger, I think it was a nice segue out of the record, and you could just start it right back over again, and it makes sense. So good flow, and those are my choices.
All right, Ben. Favorite, least favorite?
Fall Apart's first half, I was gonna choose that song. Then the middle of it, just I can't do that.
It fell apart.
Doing it. They were going for that anyways. The first track rules. I just love the way that they will establish a riff and change it up a little bit the second time around to flow into the next part. That's consistent throughout the album. So that's not only on that song, but just the vibrancy and the melodiousness of the album just really shines there at the beginning. So maybe my second favorite song might be Flame of Consciousness, but I'm gonna be completely contrary to Jim. The end of the album for me, I felt was the masturbatory kind of fun kind of song, where things were maybe a little bit more simplified and they were kind of tapping on the riffs a little bit further than they did on the rest of the album, which I thought was a little more fun and a little more you could step back and just kind of bang your fucking head instead of Thinking Man's kind of melodic thrash. And the vocals really on the whole album are just kind of there, just good enough. So I actually liked the changing it up and having the spoken kind of cynic reference to me. I like that. So that wound up being my favorite song and just a perfect way to end the album, where I felt most of the songs were pretty on par with one another. In the end, it just kind of was celebrate how good we did. So I picked My Internment for my favorite song.
Okay. TJ, favorites, least favorites?
No Empathy and Requiem for Sanity. No Empathy is cool. It's a good song. I guess I didn't really the Street Gang vocals. I don't know. I guess at the time it didn't really. It's cool though. I think overall it's a cool track, and I didn't hate the last song. I don't know. It kind of I'm driving along listening to it, and it kind of came out of me. I left it what the hell is happening here? And then all of a sudden it was over, and I was waiting for the song to kick into overdrive or do something, and it didn't. So it was I didn't necessarily hate it. I just felt like maybe it was an unfinished idea or something. Because basically you have 7 songs on this record and an outro. But by and large that's about the same right there.
Okay. Well, for me, I think one of my favorite songs on here was Fall Apart. I like the faster. When the band goes a little bit faster, it gives more energy and a thrashier vibe, which is very cool. in the riffs, especially. I love how the guitars and the bass interact on that song. They're like that super clean bass mixed in with those really complex riffs. It's just a nice sonic mix. Incubo, wait, nope, that's not that one. No Empathy. I have that on here. I really love the bass. It's like, I don't know if this is synth or just a lot of effects on the bass. It's hard to tell. But I really like the melody and the breakdown, that bass breakdown in the center or towards the end. It's kind of cool. If it's a solo, it's very tasteful and melodic. It's just it added to the song really well. My least favorite, although the song still rules, is Incubo. It's almost a little too complex with endless riff ideas that come in and quickly depart to make room for the next riff. I mean, it's just like, here's a riff, here's a riff, here's a riff, here's a riff. It's just like, riff salad. It's cool. You can do it. It kind of works, but it would have worked better if they would have cut the riffs in half and did something a little more constructive with them. But like melody lines, did anybody notice? I mean, this style of metal is very complex, and it feeds on those note-oriented riffs. There's not a lot of guitar harmonies creeping over the top. They don't really kind of step outside that formula they're working with.
Yeah.
Okay. What's that? Was somebody gonna say something?
He was just agreeing with you.
Okay. Judgment. Final thoughts. TJ, we'll start with you.
I give this record an 8. You know, a solid B. You know, I mean, just an effort and quality and talent. You know, again, I think I'm curious to see what they do for their next record. I definitely think they have it in them to move into what they're doing without, without making it become some convoluted mess. Because like I said, I think it's cool that they're so firmly rooted in the classics, because it's just so many bands are like trying, they're just not there, especially, guys this young, they're, they're coming up on Pantera and Lamb of God and stuff like that. And, Load Era Metallica, and it's like, it's like Avenged Sevenfold rules, I was like, oh, come on, stop it. So it's definitely cool. And I definitely think, and Celtic, I probably won't ever, I'm not going to bother. I don't, it's not something I'm going to return to. I will definitely check them out. If I see a new one come up, I definitely want to hear it. I think they're talented, and I think it's good. I think it's definitely good shit, and people should invest the time in it. On a personal level, I'll go back and listen to Malleus Maleficarum, Pestilence, and or something like that.
Yeah.
But for sure, a B, an 8, whatever you pick, which one ever sounds better.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Answering it. Okay, Ben.
So I think it's a great move for your first album, just to have loads of potential. That's what I think is most exciting about this thing. But they're really going to have to bring it next time to deliver upon this potential. I'm really excited to hear what they're going to do next. But it's going to have to be pretty fucking good to impress me, and also to top this, I think. Like, you can't just ride on potential past your second album, They got to really start delivering to make it great. This is great. I will probably listen to it fairly regularly, I guess, maybe twice a year or so going forward. I'm actually kind of new to the earlier Pestilence albums. I picked up Spheres like maybe 4 years ago or so because of that Radical Reach episode. I've always had Testimony of the Ancients, so like this makes a lot of sense for me.
Yep.
So some of the references kind of are a little lost on me, but like I went back and listened to Oblivion tonight, and like that's definitely there. Or Syndrome.
I've never heard Oblivion. I need to check that out.
Yeah, I haven't heard either.
Good stuff. or Syndrome. Holy shit, Syndrome rules.
Syndrome from Chicago. I've got an anthology CD of theirs. It's good.
Yeah, that's great stuff too.
Yep.
But yeah, all right, it's great. I would easily give it an 8. And like I said, that's only because your 9s and 10s are going to be for the albums that this is trying to sound like. And here's what I guess I wanted to pose to you guys. When a band comes along like this and says, listen to our album, are you more inclined to just say, no, I'm good, I still want to listen to Testimony Out of the Ancients, I'm not done listening to that all the fucking time? Or is this exciting enough to make you go, yeah, okay, I'll put that down every once in a while?
Well, for me, it makes me want to listen to the other stuff. I mean, I'll listen to it and go, yeah, cool, this is cool. But yeah, I mean, I've held up. I haven't spun this in a while, so I'm kind of like, okay, I'm probably about due. I mean, that's for me. What do you other guys think here?
It just depends. I mean, I'm always eager to hear something new. I'm always looking, and it's just it's always a matter of what your personal taste is at the time, and the older I get, my tastes evolve, and things I would have turned my nose up at 15, I listen to all the time now, and with stuff like this, it's like I'm always eager to hear something new and cool. I'm not put off by, it sounds like this, so it sucks. It's like, no, I want to hear that. I'm encouraged by that. And I want it, and I'm eager for it to be, to pique me and pique my interest to where I'm like, oh, I really got to listen to more of this. But it's just going to depend, I'm always, there's so much stuff. Like Kellen was talking about the other day, it was like, God, there's so much stuff I can't keep up with all of it, and so it's like you got to kind of draw the line. And so like right now I'm in this place where I'm listening to certain types of things and falling into weird rabbit holes with stuff that I never thought I'd give a shit about 20 years ago. But as far as this goes, it's like it's cool to hear, and I'm always digging around on the interwebs looking for stuff and popping through when I do my record shopping and things like that. So but again, like with Marty, it tends to whet the appetite to want to go back and be like, all right, I need to go and listen to this, and you put on the other thing. You're like, oh man, this is where it is. This is where it lives. So yeah.
How about you, Jim?
Yeah, for me, it makes me really happy to hear that there are new bands out there. Choosing, I think, a little bit more of a difficult path to emulate, something classic, because this is, this isn't just like, drop tune your guitar and ride the E, and this is some very, very difficult music to play, and that's not a dig on simple death metal, because that's the way I play. I'm a simple musician, but I do love and appreciate this music, and some of my favorite albums ever sound like this. So it gives me hope for the future, that there's younger generations that are really intrigued by this era of technical death metal, progressive, more jazzy type style. But will I listen to this a lot? Probably not. I'm going to hear this. I'm going to be excited that it's there and about where it could go. But I'm going to be like, yeah, I really haven't listened to Atheist in a long time. It's been a long time since I listened to individual thought patterns. I mean, that's kind of where I'm going to go, probably, rather than reach for this over and over again. And Ben made a point like, okay, next time you're going to have to wow me. That's kind of how I feel about this. It's like tons of potential here, really great stuff, but I do feel that they're really got to bust the doors open for it to be something that I'm going to want to pick up, and it's going to have to be, there's going to have to be a little bit more to it there than an inspired, like, homage to what's come before. And since I'm already talking, I'll go ahead and go into my final judgment. For me, really, excellent and precise musicianship, a great album. but not enough of their own voice for me to give it more than a 7.5 for me. It needs a little more, but I do think there's a lot of potential there, and there's really not a bad sound on it. And if you like the bands that inspired these guys to pick up their guitars, and you just are tired or burnt on the classics, well, there's no reason not to pick it up if that's your thing.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, I mean, basically everybody else said here. I was initially really bothered by the lack of originality until I realized that it's pretty obvious what they're going for here. It's a tribute. If I came at it as a tribute band type of a vibe. The songs are good. The production's good. It's just if I'm ranking this on musicality and songwriting, I'm giving them an 8. If I'm ranking them on originality, I'm giving them a 5.5 or a 6. And that's fair. It's fair. I mean, I don't expect every band I listen to be original, but this is a pretty obvious. You can tell what they're doing here. I don't think this was just a we didn't know what we were doing type of situation. I mean, you could tell that they've spent some time charting out some of these records that they worship, and they wanted to hit certain key points on some of them, and they did. They mission accomplished. They totally did it. And again, next album comes out. We spent a lot of time with this album this week. I'm going to be interested to hear what it sounds like. I don't expect it to do much different, to be honest. I think this is an album where there's a lot of passion for what they're doing here. They sound very comfortable in this realm that they're in, sonically. I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, the only thing you can really do is add more or take away. So, I mean, it could go either way. It's a good album. I enjoyed it. Yeah. And that leads us to next week. TJ, the glorious Tej, you're choosing tonight. What kind of path are you sending us down?
Well, I've given it a lot of thought. And I've been ever since I watched Kellen so unceremoniously shit all over Voivod while still trying to be apologetic for his opinion. I thought I was. That's why I was like, I want to come back on because I miss, I'll tune in and I'll catch these things, and I have 2 cents I want to throw in the kitty too on this stuff, and so I'm thinking, well, I want to get into the avant-garde stuff more again because we haven't.
The fans are clamoring. No more Johnny Touch, please. I'll second that, Frosty.
Whatever. You don't know nothing.
The right to not fucking.
It's not my fault. I like that record. But anyway, if you thought that was good, so I thought we should review Portal.
Oh, you fuck.
Ion. And there's a deeper thought behind this because this band being what they are, for those who aren't familiar, it's a sonic experience that
did not need to be purchased on vinyl, but that's just my opinion.
Well, this vinyl, man, this sucker is this shit is badass. This record, it is a disturbing and challenging listen. But I love this band for a lot of reasons.
Jesus Christ, that poster's as tall as you are.
I know, look at that.
Wow.
The artwork is just I love it.
DJ almost had to stand up for it.
I know, it's terrible. I came, they put out a box set of cassettes. They put out a couple records over to Koof. And I was almost pulled those. I was like, nah, let's just go with this one. But the thing about it for me, I'm thinking it's like, because you're talking about Voivod, you're talking about, and it's the avant-garde stuff, bands like Ulcerate and Phobocosm and Gorguts and stuff that I really, really dig a lot. And this band is kind of like still kind of removed from that, because this shit is just so much more outside of that, but still in the avant-garde death metal. And so I thought, well, let's pull this out and make everybody force feed this down their gullets, and then bring it back, and then we can get into a deeper conversation about avant-garde. So it is what it is. But I figured that was my thought behind that. So here we are. Portal. Ion.
Yep.
Cool. I haven't listened to them since Vexavoid, so it'd be cool to revisit those guys. I actually prefer Impetuous Ritual from the guitar player, but still had some cool stuff. Yeah, it'd be cool
because there's another band too. What's that? What the hell's that other band? Is it
Stargazer?
No, it's something. I can't even think of the name. It starts with like an A something, I think.
From Australia? Yeah,
it's one of these guys is really. I'll have to look it up, but I was listening to it, and it was like it was an Apostle. Well, I can't think of what it is now right off the top of my head, but it's still this very bizarre kind of extreme death metal
Alter Age.
Maybe you're right. Yeah, it seems like it was something else, but I don't know. I'll go with that.
Yeah, I know the same guy that's in Impetuous Ritual is also in Grave Upheaval. I don't know if you're about them or...
No, that wasn't it either. Maybe I'm getting my wires crossed on it, but yeah. But either way, I just because I thought maybe I'd go with something a little bit more conventional, like Ulcerate or something. But I figured I wanted to let's take it to the extreme, and then weave our way back into it.
Let's dive into the abyss.
Yeah, for sure. Because like I said, I like these guys, but not necessarily for conventional reasons. I mean, everything they're doing is so beyond convention, but it's still, I don't know. Yeah. We'll save it for next Wednesday, but enjoy, everybody.
So that leaves us with Friday. Everybody come on by. We're going to be having a big blowout Heavy Metallurgy Best of 2022 stream. We're trying to have 10 people on it, so it's going to be some air traffic controlling being done, but should be a good time. Got to have some friends come by and talk about their favorites, and we'll share ours as well. But anybody have anything to add before we call it? Ben?
I sent you this link, I know, but funny thing, the drummer of Miscreance is also in a power metal band called Hexstar, and you bet they sound like a Hellstar a hell of a lot.
Okay.
They do. Right on.
CAR.
Star, yeah.
Pretty really niche thing to call upon to copy, but Hellstar kills.
Right.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, okay, that's it. And thanks, everybody. Please go check out everybody's link in the description. Brainsmasher, Eihwaz Recordings, The Glorious Dead Bandcamp is in there. If anybody
I don't
wants to
have a
check
link.
that out. I put the Glorious Dead link in there.
Oh, wow,
that's your link.
Go check out Marty's band.
That's right. Do it. But we will see you Friday, and of course the album club reconvenes next week. So cheers, everyone. Have a great one. We will see you Friday.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.